never used also. So actually the retrograde of permutation 1 and its first rotation is used 6 times, and the permutation number 2 is used 6 times also. This is how many permutations are used in section 1 and which of them are used, and as you can see, the retrograde of the original motif is used the most. It's 4 times. And the first permutation is used 3 times. Again, the permutation 2 and its rotation is used 3 times as well. In the second section, in the multi-permutor, it happens more, and the permutations once retrograde is used more often this time. It's on 6 times, and permutation 2 is used 6 times. Its retrograde rotation is used 4 times, and not many occurrences of the other ones. In section 3, the ACH only happens 2 times, and it only comes in the first permutation, which was the first DACH motif that was heard in this piece. Only in here, the natural A, G sharp to C, and here. And in the last 3 lines, it never happens. When the beginning, it happened immediately with the starting of the second line. So either he's deliberately making the prominence on the ACH, or the DSCH motif was making the piece intenser. Maybe he's bringing back the calmness of the opening of the first section. Here shows the lines and how many motifs occur in each line. And the first line, it never happens. The second line happens 4 times, which is shocking because it immediately starts introducing the DACH motif. The red ones here are all permutations of DSCH. But then, in the 5th line, we don't get any DSCH. But he saves it for here, but more importantly, starting of the 30-second runs, which starts a different figure for the first time in the first section. So when Penderecki omits using either BACH or DSCH, he does it for some melodic purpose, which either creates the intensity and builds up the expectation to it, or slows down the pulse, the pulse of the entire piece. You can actually see how he builds up in the section 2 transition. I considered lines 30 and 31 the same because the same motifs continue throughout these 2 lines. It never happens in the transition section in the beginning, and then 4 times, and almost a little bit more than the double between 30 and 31. And then after that, again, the dramatic no motif for 2 lines, which brings us to section 3, and he gives, excuse me, in the beginning of the section 3, we don't get any DSCH, and only once, right after that, again nothing, and once, which creates in itself a symmetry, and for the last 3 lines, we don't get any DSCH motif. The analysis of the piece helps understanding the construction of the piece, but actually it's easy to hear the motifs while you're playing it without knowing exactly where they are, which shows that the music is constructed based on those motifs and is naturally bringing them out. You don't have to extrapolate different motifs and show them out, but the music does it itself. The most interesting part that I would like to point out for the last part of the recital is when he omits a note from the motif for example, here. It is the original B-A-C-H motif, but it needs a C sharp. But this chord happens for the first, it's the first triple chord that we hear for the first time, and it's very angry, it's accentuated. Before that, we start with this piano opening, and then suddenly it's something very dramatic. But he doesn't give us the C sharp. And then it happens again. It's the rotation of B-A-C-H motif. It needs a C sharp. It doesn't happen. This entire thing creates the expectation of the B-A-C-H and builds up the drama and intensity. Here, in the beginning of the fifth line, we suddenly get the C sharp, but this time it's in an E flat, which means that the intensity is not completed. With the start of the duples, he gives us the E flat, but he omits again the C sharp. So every dramatic appearance of a chord in this section needs one note to be completed, and this sense of not completion creates the intensity. In the after this huge intense line, suddenly when we get to the gracioso, the giocoso part, it's something new. And it starts actually with the original B-A-C-H and its rotation. So after this dramatic cadence-like chord, he gives us, this is B-A-C-H, and he gives us with the right order but with the rotation. And the whole thing here is still a rotation of B-A-C-H, but not there. And here in this run, it's actually interesting. If you look at the lowest part of the run, which is G sharp to G natural, and the highest, it's still B-A-C-H, but it's hidden. But the whole thing in between is actually creating the completion, expectation of completion after the lowest part of the run. It's completed with, again, a rotation of B-A-C-H. After that, you don't get this B-A-C-H motif at all for the line 11. And then he introduces the permutations of D-S-C-H, which musically tells us that it's going to go somewhere else. It's not going to be the same as the opening. And surely enough, he introduces this big, intense section where there are 4 different occurrences of B-A-C-H during those triplets for the entire line. The most dramatic part, for motivically, not musically, happens right here. This is the first time he uses the exact pitches of B-A-C-H and D-S-C-H together. And it happens with B-A-C-H in the right order, but D-S-C-H is hidden. It's in the pitches are right, but it's only a permutation. And after that, he introduces the same transitional idea that he did in the section 1, but this time he introduces the D-A-C-H motif with it. So this section is even intenser than the transition of first section, even though it's shorter, and it carries all the way, which, again, if you look at here, you can see the B-A-C-H in soprano, and it goes on, and the middle line, and the bass, and again, between lines. And the Shostakovich is, it's really, really dense, and surely enough, after this dramatic, intense occurrences, he prepares something that is never heard before, which is very fortissimo chord, which happens in D-S-C-H. So he makes the D-S-C-H motif important for a while before he creates this occurrence of D-S-C-H in chords. But right after that, he goes back the first rotation of original BACH. And then he completes the transition of section 2 like that. We talked about how this is the BACH notes, exact notes, but the different ordering. Here, you don't get the DACH motive, again, either with the right order or the right permutation. The harmonics, it could be analyzed either way. The D might not be considered as a motive note because it serves as a drone, but he introduces the D idea here when he goes for the minor second from E flat to D. So so the D must have some sort of significance for Penderecki, and he uses the drone selectively. He doesn't use it with E flat, but with F and E natural. So I considered it for this analysis as a part of the motive. It could be argued either way. I think it has a significant melodic importance throughout the piece. The final notes I would like to share is the use of BACH and DACH. Penderecki was apparently a great reader, and he still has a huge library. He was an avid reader of history, poetry, and he would spend at least 3-4 hours every day in his library just reading. He was therefore fascinated by the use of poetry in Shostakovich's 14th Symphony. He thought that was the most beautiful form of music, and we think that he uses this BACH motive as an homage to Bach, because this piece is for solo instrument, which is one of Bach's signature compositions. And this is also, BACH is used in his St. Luke Passion, which Passion, again, is a Bach signature composition style. And in these two pieces, he chooses to use the BACH motive, which must have a significance. For the DACH motive, since we don't know exactly what kind of relationship he had with Shostakovich, other than conducting his pieces excessively, he was such an important Shostakovich interpreter in the 70s and 80s that one of his friends asked him why he never ever visited the Soviet Union and played Shostakovich there. Is it maybe a political decision? And he said, no, I didn't want to bother to impress Shostakovich in his home turf. I would like to make him known to the European and American public rather than trying to go and play for him. But the funny part, not the funny part, sorry, the interesting part about this hymn that the DACH is based on and the 14th Symphony is they are both very pessimistic and very death-oriented pieces. And since Penderecki was highly fascinated by these two pieces, I think there must be a significance why he chose the DACH motive to go with the piece as well as BACH. And actually, the psi motive, which can be this descending minor second, can be heard in many of Penderecki's famous pieces. It's in his St. Luke Passion, in his viola concerto, in his violin concerto. It's in his Polish Requiem. So, and he, I think, coined the term psi motive himself. It was his favorite. And the piece, the arch shape of the piece, the opening and the closing sections very closely similar, and the big extensive moto proprio in the middle, actually maybe resembles the lifespan. And since he was so impressed by the poetry, I am not personally sure if I've checked this, but there is nowhere in writing that he was actually a fan or not. I found this poem by T.S. Eliot, and I really honestly don't know if he was a big T.S. Eliot fan. But I think it actually signifies the general construction of the piece, so I would like to read a part of this poem for you. And it goes like this. Words move, music moves, only in time. but that which is only living can only die. Words after speech reach into silence. Only by the form, the pattern, can words or music reach the stillness, as a Chinese jar still moves perpetually in its stillness. Not the stillness of the violin while the note lasts, not that only, but the coexistence, or say that the end precedes the beginning, and the end and the beginning were always there before the beginning and after the end. And I would like to conclude my lecture here. Before taking questions, I would like to thank 3 people, which is, first of all, my teacher, who was graciously helping me and spending his precious time on this and giving me this idea of BACH motif. And secondly, Dr. Forrest, who couldn't be here because he's in a conference, but he helped me it's in a very generous way to how to word my thoughts, because I had no idea how to put this on a paper. And third of all, my husband, who didn't divorce me, but there were a lot of coloring pencils and numbers in the living room. So, and thank you all for coming. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer.
I already know the answer to this, but I'd like everybody else to hear it. How does getting this deep into a composer's mind change how you play something? How does it affect how you play?
First of all, it affected me when I wasn't sure how to phrase, especially in the fast section, how to phrase something, because it could go either way. You could start from one note and end on a different note, the phrasing, or you could start on a different note. The chordal structures, you could group them differently while playing. It helped me analyzing this to see which motifs are actually more important. And when you apply that to the accents and different, not accents, emphasis on the chords or beginnings of the phrases, that actually makes a bigger, clearer picture in my mind. So that helped me a lot, especially with these chords, because I, honestly, in the first time, I didn't know where they were coming from. They were out of nowhere. And then it made sense. It was building up and how they were constructed. But most of all, it helped me with the moving chords and with the multi-preparatory sections. Yes?
Yes, for anyone in the audience who doesn't know, could you explain what the DSCH motive has to do with the name Shostakovich?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't do that. So DSCH, actually I will just write it on the board. I don't know if anybody can see it. Maybe I should. Shostakovich, as any composer that came after Bach, was influenced by Bach. And BACH, of course, spells exactly Bach's name, And DSCH, Shostakovich wanted to use the same technique in his compositions as a signature. In German notation, D is in English, is D. S, on the other hand, is ES in German notation, is E flat. But if he took E, it will be an E. So he instead went with S, so it spells as E flat, C, again, same as English, and H, B natural. So it's the same idea that Bach had with the same German notation.
You talked briefly about the chords that were missing notes. Are those the only cases that they are missing notes, or does it happen quite frequently throughout the rest of the piece?
That is the only case that is repeatedly happens. That is like noticeable missingness in the. That is the first time, and they are the only chords that happen after Douglas, and they were considerably missing. In the other chords, some of them it's missing one note, but I didn't consider them as a completed motif because they didn't have the same pattern as the chord structure.
Thank you.
Did you raise your hand? Sorry.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.